I'm not the kind of person who scares easily. Moving to a new city, living alone in an old apartment, surviving on instant noodles and black coffee, none of that ever bothered me. But everything changed when I met an old man named Mr. O'Malley, my upstairs neighbor. My name is Daniel, 29 years old. I had just moved into Meadow Lane Apartments, a 6-story building in the northern part of Manhattan. The location was decent, the rent was cheap, and most importantly, no big deposit required. Honestly, I didn't care much about the rundown exterior or the creaky stairs that groaned with every step. I just needed a quiet place to work and rest. The first day went by normally. The room was spacious enough, the furniture basic, and barely any noise from outside. I liked that, until the next morning, when I first met Mr. O'Malley. He appeared at my door, just as I was about to go out for breakfast. An old man with white hair, thin, his face lined with wrinkles, and a friendly smile that, for some reason, made me a little uneasy. He wore a worn-out knitted sweater and loose slacks. In his hand was a small bag of bird bread. "Good morning, young man," he greeted. His voice was raspy, but polite. "You just moved in, didn't you?" I nodded and introduced myself. He chuckled softly, then told me he lived in Unit 602, directly above mine. "I've been living here since 1989, he said. "Back then, this place was full of families. Now, well, mostly loners and people out of work, myself included." We chatted briefly in the hallway. He told me his wife had passed away 12 years ago. Since then, he'd been living alone, keeping parakeets in his apartment, and occasionally feeding wild birds from his balcony. "There's something peaceful about listening to them chirp," he said, gazing out the corridor window. "Even when it's quiet, at least I'm not completely alone." I just smiled. I didn't know how to respond. The next few days passed uneventfully. Mr. O'Malley often greeted me in the hallway or when we crossed paths on the stairs. Sometimes I heard birdsong from above, whistles and little chirps. Oddly enough, the sound was calming, even though the building was so old and sounds from other units shouldn't travel that easily. One night, after work, I saw a middle-aged man I'd never seen before standing in the lobby. He looked tense and wore a black suit. When our eyes met, he gave me a slight nod. "Do you know Mr. O'Malley?" he asked softly. I nodded. "Yeah, I do. He's my neighbor, upstairs." The man looked sad. "I'm his son. My father passed away earlier today. Heart attack." I froze. The building manager found him. He had probably been dead since morning. "We're holding a funeral tomorrow afternoon. You're welcome to attend if you'd like." I didn't know what to say. We had only known each other for a few days, but for some reason, the news left me with an empty feeling in my chest. The next day, I went to the funeral. It wasn't far, only about 30 minutes by train. I stood a bit away from the group of family members, just watching. Mr. O'Malley was buried under a gray sky, damp earth, cold air, and the sound of birds in the distance all created a somber atmosphere that somehow felt fitting. I bowed my head as his coffin was lowered. In my heart, I whispered, "Rest in peace, Mr. O'Malley." But that night, everything changed. At around 2 in the morning, I woke up to a noise from the ceiling, footsteps, slow, heavy, pacing back and forth. I lay still for a moment. Maybe it was a new tenant who moved into Mr. O'Malley's unit, but wasn't it supposed to be empty? The footsteps continued for 5 minutes. I got up, standing under the ceiling, listening. The steps stopped. Then, I heard the faint chirping of birds. A chill ran down my spine. It was the same sound. If Mr. O'Malley were still up there. I tried to ignore it. Maybe there were wild birds outside the window. Maybe it was just the wind or mice in the ceiling. but the sounds continued on the following nights. Footsteps, birdsong, sometimes the sound of a chair being dragged. And on the third night, I heard something that made my body freeze in place. Daniel. It was soft, raspy, almost a whisper, but I heard it clearly. Someone was calling my name from above. The next morning, I went to see the building manager, an elderly woman named Mrs. Carver. I asked her if anyone new had moved into Unit 602. She looked at me with a puzzled expression. Of course not. We haven't even cleaned it yet. Besides, the key is still in my drawer. My breath caught. Why? Is something wrong? I almost told her the truth, but stopped. No, just curious. I thought I heard someone walking up there last night. Mrs. Carver shook her head. This building tends to creak. It's old. Sounds from the pipes or the ventilation can seem like footsteps. Don't worry. It's normal. I nodded slowly and pretended to agree. But deep down, I knew the sound I heard wasn't from pipes or old wood. They were human footsteps. A few days passed. I tried not to think about it too much. I played music at night to sleep, kept myself busy with work, and avoided going upstairs. But the disturbances didn't stop. Sometimes I'd find specks of soil on the floor near the vents. Sometimes a damp, earthy smell would fill the apartment at night. Once, I even saw a small bird feather lying on the dining table, though all my windows were shut. The climax came on the 10th night. I was watching a movie when suddenly the power went out. All the lights died. I sat in the dark, only the faint glow from outside providing any illumination. Then, there was a soft knock at the door. I stood up slowly. My heart was racing. I didn't turn on the lights, just walked carefully to the door. I sighed in relief, but just as I stepped back, the knock came again, this time louder. I quickly turned on my phone's flashlight and opened the door. The hallway was empty, but when I looked up the stairs, I saw the silhouette of an old man standing at the top landing, motionless, just staring down. It was Mr. O'Malley. My heart nearly stopped. His body was thin, his face pale, and his eyes were wide and unblinking, but I could see the faint smile on his lips. The same smile that once seemed warm now looked cold and unnatural. I shut the door and locked every lock I had. The lights came back on 10 minutes later, but I didn't sleep that night. Every little sound made me jump. The next morning, I mustered up the courage to go to the 6th floor. The hallway was silent. The light from the ceiling fixture flickered. I walked slowly to the door of Unit 602. The door was closed, but there were scratch marks on the frame, like from fingernails or something sharp. I stepped closer, and that's when I noticed, from the gap beneath the door, I could hear birds chirping. I heard a chair scraping, and the sound of feet dragging across the floor. I pressed my ear to the door. Then someone whispered from the other side, right into my ear. "Why did you come, Daniel?" I jumped back and ran down the stairs without looking back. Since that moment, I knew one thing. Mr. O'Malley hadn't really left. Or, maybe, something that looked like him had returned to the apartment. And for some reason, it chose me. I don't know what to do. But one thing is certain, this isn't over, because this morning, when I stepped out to buy coffee, someone had left a small piece of bread in front of my door, the same kind Mr. O'Malley used to carry.